Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today with my Florida State football predictions for the 2023 college football season. Before I continue, two quick things. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate if you do that. Sorry I've been a bit slow with these. You're going to get a lot of these this week. It's been a bit scheduling for me has been a bit tougher the past few days, but hopefully this week it seems to be a lot more loose with the schedule. So let's get into it. Florida State football predictions last year, 10-3. Basically got hot at the end of the year. A lot of people are very high on this team, including me. I think Florida State could seriously make the college football playoffs. They bring back 17 starters. Uh, including the quarterback Jordan Travis. This is going to be a really good team here for Florida State. So let's go ahead and get into this here. So we'll kick it off with the over under here. I have Florida State. Not that I don't have Florida State's over under. FanDuel over under. I grab all these from FanDuel. Over under win total for Florida State's 9.5. FBI has them ranked as the 14th best team in college football. The FPI best case scenario for Florida State, in my opinion, is 11-1. I do think they will lose a game somewhere this year. Worst case scenario is 8-4. The swing game for Florida State this year, in my opinion, is the first game of the year, Sunday night in Orlando, neutral site game against LSU. I don't think it's so much that they have to win against LSU to have a successful season, because I do think they should be slight dogs in that game. It's so much that I think that they need to have a good showing against LSU. And if you saw my LSU football prediction video, you already know who I have in that game. But basically, it really, to me, it really comes down to the showing that Florida State has. They can't lose that game 35-14. If they lose the game, it has to be tight. So keep that in mind. Um, as I said, they bring back 17 starters. Mike Norvell, give him credit. Give Florida State credit for hanging in with him. It's really been a tough, not so much a tough go for it for him, but it's really been a few years. He's basically stressed patience, and I think it's finally starting to pay off for Florida State. So let's get into it. The schedule. They kick off their first game here, as I said, September 3rd, Sunday night game, neutral site game against LSU in Orlando, Florida. If you watch the LSU video, you already know who I have in this game. But this game, I think, is basically a toss-up. I would favor LSU slightly. I do think Florida State will lose this game, but I think it'll be close. So I think a tight loss week one against LSU. I just think LSU is the better team. That's what it comes down to. And also last year's revenge factor with how LSU lost that game last year. I mean, a lot of people thought that game saved Mike Norvell's job. Basically him basically escaping New Orleans with a win. So LSU, I think Florida State, they lose that game week one. Week two, Southern Miss at home. When Southern Miss is not a bad team in the Sun Belt, but Florida State should be able to beat Southern Miss pretty easily, in my opinion. And these are the games that Florida State, I know the past few years, teams like UL Monroe go in there and beat them. Jacksonville State went ahead and beat Florida State. These are the games that you gotta go ahead. Stanford, another one. These are the games that you just got to make. And I think they actually beat Stanford, but it was close. You gotta beat these. You gotta blow out these Group of Five teams if you want to be good. If you want to compete for national championships, which I know Florida State wants to do. I think they take care of business against Southern Miss. Week three against Boston College on the road. Uh, Boston College is a team that I think will be a little bit better this year. I mean, it could have not gone any worse last year for Boston College. It's up there in Boston, but at the same time, Florida State's just they're just much more talented. I expect Florida State to win this game pretty convincingly on the road against Boston College, get a win there. Next game, probably the biggest game on the schedule for Florida State, on the road against Clemson. Clemson's a team that they've kind of, I'm not going to say come back down to earth, but they kind of regressed a little bit since the 2018, 2016 teams. The game is in Clemson. To me, this game. I mean, It's probably the biggest game in the ACC regular season. I mean, this is probably a preview of your ACC championship game. Remember, the ACC doesn't do divisions anymore. It's just the top 2 teams. I went back and forth with this one. I do think Clemson, I think they're going to be a bit better than what they were last year. I'm going to go ahead and say that Clemson goes ahead, beats Florida State. To me, this is a pick 'em, but within Clemson, I'm just going to say Clemson finds a way to wins this game. And Florida State starts the season 2-2. Now, granted, I still think they're a very good team, Florida State, but at the same time, I mean, LSU and Clemson on the road against Clemson, LSU at a neutral site. First of all, I think LSU is just a better team than Florida State, and Florida State might be a tick better than Clemson when it's all said and done. But with the game being in Clemson, I'm going to go ahead and say Clemson finds a way to wins that game. So you go into your bye week at 2-2. At this point, I think Florida State fans might worry a little bit. I wouldn't worry if I'm a Florida State fan. You come out of the bye at home against a Virginia Tech team that's, for Virginia Tech standards, horrible. You will beat Virginia Tech at home. I don't think the game will be that close, to be honest with you. At home against Virginia Tech, get the win there. Next game is against Syracuse. Syracuse, they've been competitive throughout the past few seasons. I mean, the game is at home though for Florida State. I think Florida State will go ahead and get the win. And because also I think Syracuse is losing a lot not personally, but they're losing a lot of talent. So I think Florida State gets the win against Syracuse. So coming out of the bye week, 2 wins at home. These are 2 games, in my opinion, you gotta win if you're Florida State. Next game at home against Duke. I am high on Duke this year. I think Duke is a team that that came out of nowhere last year, and a lot of people are sleeping on them again this year. With that being said, it is at home. It is the homecoming game for Florida State. I do think that is a factor. I also think that with it being at home and also the talent level is just a lot better at Florida State. I think Florida State beats Duke, but I do think this is a competitive game. But go ahead, give me Florida State to beat Duke, and then at this point, hey, you're sitting at what 5-2, like after a 2-2 start. Now you're feeling good about yourselves. If you're Florida State, next game on the road against Wake Forest. Wake Forest is a team that I think isn't going to have that good of a year this year. They still might make a bowl game, Wake Forest, and the game is in Wake Forest after a 3-game homestand. But Wake Forest is a team, in my opinion, that kind of regressed a little bit last year, and I think this year is probably going to be about the same, fighting for bowl eligibility. I think Florida State goes on the road. I think they beat Wake Forest on the road, and I actually think they might beat them kind of convincingly. So big win there on the road against Wake Forest. Next game is on the road against Pitt. This is a nice little tough 2-game stretch here for Florida State. I'll mention the other game after this Pitt game. On the road against Pitt, you know Pat Narduzzi's going to have that team ready to play. Because at this point, I have Florida State at 6-2. You know Pat Narduzzi's going to have the Pitt team ready to play. Pitt is a team that some people are pretty high on. They're a team that always seems to at least be a fringe top 25 team. It's going to be a tough game. It could be a tough environment. I mean, we'll see. But overall, I do think Florida State has a shot at losing this game. However, I'm going to pick Florida State to win this game. I think this is the type of game. Maybe this is a top 25 game when going into it. We'll see. But in my opinion, I look at this game, and the way I look at it is, this is a game, in my opinion, if it wasn't for the LSU game in week 1, because the LSU game is going to tell you everything you need to know about Florida State this year, in my opinion. That's why I picked it as a swing game. But if there wasn't, let's say they're facing another group of 5 team instead of LSU in the non-conference, this pick game will probably be the swing game. This is another game kind of late in the season that's going to give you a good measuring stick, in my opinion, if you're Florida State. If you go in there and take care of business against Pitt, I think Florida State is probably going to be a type of team that's going to be competing for the college football playoffs year in and year out. But if you struggle against them and lose, probably not there yet. But I think Florida State goes into Pitt and gets the win against Pitt. Close game, but gets the win. Next game, at home against Miami. I do think Miami is going to be better this year. As a matter of fact, I think they are a dark horse to actually get to the ACC championship game and possibly even win the ACC if things fall right. With that being said, the game is in Tallahassee. Um, as I said, I do think Miami's going to be better, but I think with the game in Tallahassee, I think Florida State gets the win at home against Miami. You beat them last year, 45-3. You've actually beaten them the previous 2 years. Um, in my opinion, I think that continues at home. It's in Tallahassee. I think Florida State at worst finds a way to beat Miami and gets a big win at home against Miami. Next game I'm not going to spend much time on is against North Alabama, FCS opponent. Get the win there. Yeah. And then the final game of the season on the road against Florida. I am not high on the Florida Gators at all this year. But that being said, it is a rivalry game. It is on the road. Crazy things happen, rivalry games. I think Florida State gets the win, but I do think this game's probably a little bit closer than what some people think. I mean, remember last year, Florida State was hot, and even with the game in Tallahassee, it was a 45-38 win against the Gators of Florida State. So, in my opinion, I do think that Florida State gets the win here on the road against Florida. So, with that, if you count up all the wins and losses, I have the Florida State Seminoles going 10-2, 7-1 in the ACC. I do think it's a bit of a rough start starting 2-2, but I think they win 8 straight to cap off the season. I mean, if you look at the schedule, I mean, the tough games after Clemson is really going to be the Pitt game, the Miami game, and the Florida game. Those are the only 3 games I really see Florida State having a shot at losing in after the Clemson game. And I think they run through the schedule. And I think they play for the ACC, obviously. And we'll see if they win the ACC later on down the road when I show you all the ACC teams' records that I have down. So comment down below, tell me what you think. I always like to hear from you all. Thanks for watching. I'm going to try to get 3 videos out today, try and make up for the past few days. So the next 2 is going to be Penn State and Ohio State in that order. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. McD the Beast signing off.